This is the Vaxee Zygen NP01S Wireless. And yeah, that's a mouthful, but out of all the mice that I've tried so far in 2023, I think this might be the best one yet. Unlike most of the mice that I review, this mouse is actually on the smaller side. It's not going to be for everyone as it does get quite narrow in the middle, but the shape, quality, and build performance are all top notch. If anything, this mouse has made me excited for when they release the larger version. Now, I did have a few minor issues which I'll get into, but first, let me give you an overview. The NP01S comes in at around 70 grams, which I know some people will be disappointed in. It's certainly not the lightest mouse ever. However, I think a lot of people will find the weight to be a nice middle ground. Lighter mice cause less fatigue and are easier to start and stop because of basic inertia. However, they also take a higher level of steadiness in your hands and fingers, so everyone's going to have their own ideal weight. I personally would like it to be lighter, but I don't think 70 grams is a deal breaker at all. Something I do have to mention is how nice the coating is. If you've tried either the XE or XE Wireless in the past, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It has a very pleasant feeling to it, and it's just the right amount of grippiness without it being glossy. The shape is ergonomic, however, when comparing to other ergonomic shapes, I found it to be pretty subtle. It's almost like an ergonomic Zowie S2, and the slant on the top of the mouse is far less aggressive than most other ergonomic mice as well. The shape is quite suitable for a few grip styles depending on your hand size. I think both small and large hands can reasonably claw grip this mouse. However, fingertip grip isn't the most ideal unless you have large hands, and of course, palm grip is going to be comfortable if you have small hands, but it's going to be a struggle otherwise. As someone with 20 centimeters by 10.5 centimeter hands, I was actually quite impressed with the shape, despite it causing my hand to cramp up after a few hours. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy the shape if they have smaller hands than I do, and purely from a shape standpoint, it's an easy recommendation for me to give to them. In terms of build quality, they almost got it perfect. Overall, the mouse feels very solid. However, after a few weeks, I did notice that the right-hand side started to creak and flex a little bit, and this is something Vaxee's already addressed. Apparently, many of the copies on the first batch have this problem, and if you happen to get one with this problem, they've already offered to replace it. Personally, I don't really notice it too much and it doesn't affect the functionality at all, but it is worth mentioning. As far as everything else is concerned, the clicks feel great and there's no side play on them. They're using Huano pink dots, which are very tactile, but with the way they've implemented the shell, they've got a good balance because they're moderately light to press as well. For those that care, there is a little bit of noticeable post travel on the main clicks, but nothing that's egregious. The side buttons are small and out of the way and tensioned nicely so there's no wobble, and don't have a lot of pre-war post travel. And for what it's worth, I think it has one of the nicest feeling scroll wheels that I've tried. It's very tactile and you can easily feel all the steps, and the mechanical encoder they use is very satisfying. The mouse uses the latest Pixart 3395 sensor, and the performance is fantastic. Vaxee's done a lot of work to fine-tune it, and in fact, have made a competitive mode to squeeze out even more performance out of it. The competitive mode is going to slightly improve reliability whenever using the mouse in wireless mode. However, the standard mode is already very good in this regard, so they've allowed you to switch between the two modes so you can prioritize if you prefer to have more battery life with the standard mode, or a small marginal gain in reliability and performance with a competitive mode. With the competitive mode, which is the one that's enabled by default, you're going to get about 55 hours of battery life, whereas on the standard mode, you're going to get about 100 hours. The differences between the two, while measurable, are still very small, so it's really up to you if you want to sacrifice that extra 45 hours of battery life. Taking a look at the bottom of the mouse, you can see that because this mouse doesn't use software, they've added several buttons to the bottom so you can adjust DPI, polling rate, and debounce time. Now, you can also adjust the liftoff distance and switch between the different modes by using a combination of various buttons. The mouse gates included are pretty nice. I definitely like them a lot more than the ones on the XE Wireless. They're nice and speedy, and they don't feel quite as scratchy. I do wish they would have included a second pair in the box. However, thankfully, Vaxee does sell replacements rather cheap on their website. And you're also able to purchase a second dongle if you really want to switch between two PCs, or if you happen to lose the first one, which is not something that many companies allow you to do. This is honestly a mouse that I really would consider maining if I had smaller hands. Like I said, it makes me really curious for the NP01 wireless in the future, which I'll most likely review also, but in the meantime, here's my review of the XE Wireless.